If you want to study a business or a business related program at the master's level, chances are that you've come across three different programs: an MBA or a Master's of Business Administration, an MIM or a Master's in Management, and specialized master's programs such as an MS in Finance or a MSBA. Now, I've seen students make mistakes in selecting these programs, and making a mistake here can cost you 2 years of your life and up to 50 to 80 lakh rupees. So in this video, what I want to do is compare all the programs for you and tell you which program might be best suited for you. At the end of the video, I'll also give you a framework to decide which is the right program for you, and I'll tell you the 3 mistakes that students typically make so that you don't make them. Hi, my name is Ameya. I'm a study abroad counselor. I've done my MBA from the University of Toronto myself. I've helped hundreds of students get into the world's top ranked programs, and I also make videos that help students make the right study abroad decisions as well as career choices. So if you're new to this channel and if you haven't already done so, do subscribe. It will be a win-win for the both of us. So let's start by understanding who these degrees are for. Now, if you're looking at an MBA, then typically what you would notice in the class profile is that most candidates have 4 to 5 years of work experience at top business schools. This is because the MBA program is designed for mid-career stage professionals, those people with 3 to 7 years of work experience. In fact, many business schools will not even consider your application if you have lesser than 2 years of work experience. Now, there are some exceptions to this. You might find a few deferred MBA programs in Europe, Asia, and the United States. But in those cases too, even though you can apply early, you still need to join the program after you get 2 to 3 years of work experience. On the other hand, a master's in management or a specialized master program are typically meant for people who are at the early or the very first stages of their career. Those people with between 0 to 2 years of work experience, and the class profile reflects this as well. Again, in many cases, business schools would not even consider your application for these programs if you have more than 2 years of work experience. For example, Cambridge and London business schools discourage applicants with more than 2 years of work experience to apply for the Masters in Management or Specialized Masters program. Next, let's understand the curriculum and the duration of these programs. Now, first, if you're talking about the MIM program, then most MIM programs, or actually even Specialized Masters programs, are typically 1 to 1.5 years in duration, no matter which business school you go to, no matter what the location of that business school is. MBA programs, on the other hand, vary by location. So you have MBA programs in United States, Canada, and Australia, which are typically 1.5 to 2 years in duration. But then if you look at MBA programs in other parts of the world, such as UK, Ireland, or Europe, then those programs are typically 1 year in duration. Now, talking about the curriculum, an MIM program is a generalist degree, which means that you study 1 or 2 subjects from different areas of management. So you would study 1 or 2 subjects from accounting, 1 or 2 subjects from strategy, 1 or 2 subjects from operations, so on and so forth. A specialized master's program, on the other hand, is a specialized degree, as the name implies. So if you do something like, say, an MS in Finance, the majority of the courses that you study would be related to finance. Now, this does not mean that the number of courses that you study in a specialized master's program is less than an MIM. It just means that you're studying all the subjects related to your niche. Now, if you're talking about an MBA program, on the other hand, then that's like a combination of an MIM or a specialized master's program. So what do I mean by that? Well, if your MBA program is, let's say, 1 year in duration, then in the first semester, you would take 1 or 2 subjects from different areas of management, much like a master's program. And then in the second semester, you would specialize in one of those areas, much like a specialized master's program. Similarly, for a 2-year MBA program, the first year would be spent studying subjects across the board from different areas of management, while the second year would be spent in a concentration or in a specialization. So an MBA program is actually like a combination of the two, and it gives you both breadth as well as depth. Next, let's understand the cost structure of these programs. Now look, the cost at different business schools for these programs is going to vary a lot. It can go anywhere from 20 lakh rupees to 1.5 crores. But in this video, I want to focus on the top 50 B schools because that's typically what international applicants target. Now, if you're taking a look at the MBA program, then that is the most expensive of the 3 kinds of programs. A top 50 business school MBA program will cost you anywhere between 50 lakh rupees to 1.5 crores in terms of the tuition fee. The cost depends on the ranking itself. So the higher rank the business school, the more expensive it will be, as well as the location. Programs which are in the United States tend to be more expensive than other parts of the world. And an MIM or a specialized master's program is going to be anywhere between 50 to 60% the cost of an MBA program. So if a business school has all the 3 kinds of programs, then an MIM or a specialized master's program will be cheaper than the MBA program. In terms of the average cost though, an MIM or a specialized master's program, again at a top 50 business school, would cost you anywhere between 30 to 60 lakh rupees. After listening to the last segment, I'm sure many of y'all are considering an MIM or a specialized master's degree. Why? Because you can get a degree from a top-notch business school at a fraction of the cost of an MBA. But wait till you hear about the salaries. If you pursue your MBA, starting salaries from a top 50 business school could be anywhere between 80 lakh rupees to 1.2 crores. From the same business schools, if you pursue your MIM or specialized masters, well then your starting salary would be lower, somewhere between 40 lakh rupees to 60 lakh rupees. Now, this does not mean that the MBA is a more prestigious degree or that it is more recognized. The higher salary actually reflects the fact that people going into an MBA program have more work experience on average, so they get paid for that. So we spoke of salaries, but what about the job opportunities themselves? So this depends on, again, which program you're pursuing. If you go for something like an MBA or an MIM, which again are generalist degrees, well then you can get into any sort of industry, any sort of job function that you want to. So you could get into investment banking, consulting, product development, marketing, operations, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, if you do a specialized master's degree like a master's in finance, well then you're pretty much restricted to that niche because you've built your skills and knowledge in that one area. So if you do a master's in finance, then you are going to get jobs in finance, again, in areas like investment banking, equity research, corporate finance, and more. But you may not be able to switch to consulting. Similarly, if you do something like a master's in supply chain management, well, then you're going to get into operations, logistics, supply chain related roles. So the insight here is that if you're sure about what industry you want to get into, then please go ahead and pursue a specialized master's degree, because that way you can spend your entire time building the skills that actually matter to you and your career. But on the other hand, if you aren't sure what sort of industry and job role you want to get into, then it might be a better choice to do either an MIM or an MBA, because that keeps your options open. Unlike technical master's programs, which typically evaluate candidates on the basis of their test scores, on the basis of their academics and research work, MBA programs, MIM programs, and specialized master's programs in the area of business actually evaluate applicants more holistically. Now, don't get me wrong, grades and test scores are definitely important, but having good grades and good test scores and nothing else is not going to get you into a top-notch program. So what is that something extra that these schools are actually looking for? Again, that depends upon which degree you are finalizing. So if you're going for an MBA, then presumably you're coming in with work experience. So the main thing that the business school is actually looking for is the kind of work you've done, the quality of your work experience. So they're going to look for things such as taking initiative at work, career progressions, awards and recognition, international exposure, so on and so forth. On the other hand, if you're looking at an MIM program, then you don't have any work experience. So then the business schools are going to look for leadership or leadership qualities based on the other extracurricular activities that you have done. So anything done in college, such as, leading a student club, or maybe starting an entrepreneurial venture on the side, or let's say volunteering in an NGO and helping out the NGO raise funds, is going to show proof of leadership, and that's going to help you get into an MIM program. Now, if you're applying for a specialized master's program, then the business school is going to want to see more technical skills that will help you perform well in that specialized master's. So let's say again you want to go for an MS in finance, then pursuing something like a CFA level 1, level 2, or an FRM level 1 or level 2 can help your cause. Similarly, if you want to do something like an MSBA, a Masters of Business Analytics, then building projects using Python, Tableau, C++, Kaggle is going to show the business school that you have the skills to perform well in class. Now again, this is not to say that your academics and test scores don't matter, they absolutely do. But how much they matter depends on which program you're applying to. If you're applying for an MBA program, then your academic scores, your GPA in college is not going to matter much, because that GPA reflects your academic performance a few years into the past. Why? Because you have some work experience. So the weightage is going to be more on your test scores, specifically either the GRE score or the GMAT score. You can take either, it doesn't matter in 2026. Now, many of the students want waivers for the GRE and the GMAT test because they don't want to take those tests. But in my experience, it's always a good idea to take either the GRE or the GMAT for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that if you get a strong GRE or a GMAT score, your chances of getting an admit actually increases. Your chances of getting scholarships also increase. In fact, in my own case, I had only 2 years of work experience when I applied for my MBA. The only reason I got a $25,000 scholarship from the Rotman School of Management was because of my high GMAT score. And at any rate, if you're going for an MBA program, then you're going to compete with other people for jobs later on. And some elite companies, especially in consulting and finance, will want to see your GRE or your GMAT score before recruiting you. Now, if you're looking at MIM programs or specialized master's programs, then there the weightage of your test scores is lesser than what it would be for an MBA program. But then your academics also matter. And MIM programs or specialized master's programs are a good place for you to apply to if you're looking for test score waivers, because business schools are more flexible on the test score requirement for these programs than they are for the MBA. But again, regardless, I feel that if you have the time, you should take the GRE or the GMAT. It's only going to help your cause. And if you aren't willing to take these tests, or if you're completely opposed to the idea of taking these tests, then the unfortunate news is that you're going to have to look at business schools which are not ranked in the top 50 of the world. Maybe look at something between 50 to 100 or even lower than that. All in all, if I'm talking about how easy or difficult it is to get selected into these programs, then MBA programs are slightly more challenging or difficult to get into. Why? Because the people that you're competing with in terms of your profile, they come in with more work experience, or they have more competitive profiles. On the other hand, MIM and specialized master's programs, the students applying are younger, they have less developed profiles. So if I were to put a number to it, the top 50 business schools in the world have a selection rate anywhere between 10 to 25% when it comes for their MBA programs. And for the same business schools, if you're looking at the MIM or the specialized master's programs, the selection rate is anywhere between 15 to 30%. But in both cases, you can see that they are rejecting more candidates than they are accepting, which means that you need to be sure about your chances of getting into the right business school for the right program. Now, if you're applying to any business school for any of these three programs, I have some good news for you. I'm going to share a link in the description. Fill that form to secure a 15-minute free profile evaluation with me. In just 15 minutes, I can tell you what your chances are at your dream business school for the program that you wish to apply for. I can tell you what is strong about your profile and what needs to change. Again, links in the description, fill it out and my team will get in touch with you. So by now you have a fair understanding of the three different program types and you're already probably leaning towards one program or another. But I want to give you a definitive framework to help you identify which is the right program for you. And now you should be able to see a flowchart on your screen which will actually help you make that decision. So let me explain this step by step. So there are three cases here based on how many years of work experience you have. You either have less than 2 years of work experience or between 2 and 4 years of experience or more than 4 years of experience. So let's take the easy cases first. If you have more than 4 years of experience, then it's pretty clear cut. You need to apply for an MBA program. Why? Because most business schools with that kind of work experience are not going to accept you for the MIM or the specialized master's program. Now, if you have less than 2 years of experience, then you really have only two choices. You can either go for a specialized master's program or you can go for an MIM program. Your profile is not going to be competitive for an MBA program. So that's out of the question. Between a specialized master's program and an MIM program, the way you need to decide is based on your long-term career goals. If you know exactly what sort of industry, what sort of job role you want to get into, then please go ahead for a specialized master's program, not for an MIM. On the other hand, if you aren't sure about what industry, program or company you want to work in, then go for an MIM because that way you'll be able to keep your options open. The tricky part is when you have between 2 and 4 years of work experience, because candidates with that sort of work experience can in theory apply to any of these three programs. So how do you decide? Well, the first thing again you ask yourself is, are you clear about what sort of job role or industry you want to work in? If the answer to that question is yes, then by default go for a specialized master's program, because that way again you can build the skills that you need to build to get into the career you want, and those programs are easier to get in. Now, if on the other hand you aren't sure about what sort of career you want, then stick to either an MIM or an MBA, which is again, both of these are generalist degrees. Now within these, then decide what your budget is. If your budget is less than 60 lakh rupees, don't apply to MBA programs, because there are very few MBA programs less than 60 lakh rupees which are in the top 50 business schools of the world. So in that case, you would need to apply to an MIM. But if you have a budget which is more than 60 lakh rupees, that means that if budget is no problem, automatically it doesn't mean that you should be applying for an MBA. Then what you need to do is you need to evaluate your own work experience. If you have strong work experience and strong extracurriculars, go ahead for an MBA. But on the other hand, if you feel that your profile is weak or your profile is not strong enough, then go ahead for an MIM program, because these programs are less selective than an MBA program. To end this video, I want to caution you against three big mistakes that students make when they apply to business programs abroad. The first mistake is applying for an MBA too early. Now, as Indians, we are used to doing an MBA directly after college. That's very common in India. Top Indian business schools such as the IIMs accept freshers. But that's just not a thing abroad. Top business schools around the world want at least 3 to 4 years of work experience before they can take you or select you for the program. Why? Because they teach you using the case study method. And if you don't have any work experience, you're not going to be able to contribute to the classroom case study discussion, and that's in fact going to affect your grades. Now, let's say that in the rare case you do get into a business school with less work experience, I would still say that you should not take that up. The reason being, once you are done with your MBA program, you're going to be competing with your classmates for a job. And those people are going to have more amount of work experience than you, 4, 5, 6 years, versus maybe if you have only say 1 or 2 years of experience. So then naturally when the company is evaluating applicants, you are going to be at a severe disadvantage compared to them. The second mistake is applying to programs only on the basis of MBA rankings. Now look, I know that there are more than 10,000 business schools out there, and therefore you might be tempted to look at rankings as a good starting point. And it's fair to use rankings as a good starting point. But where using rankings becomes an issue is if you only shortlist business schools on the basis of rankings. For one, rankings are actually not very accurate. Take the example of the recent released Financial Times ranking. 24% of the weightage in the Financial Times ranking, or close to 1/4 of the weightage, is for factors that actually don't relate to your career outcomes at all. So they're looking at things such as carbon footprint, international students, and gender diversity. Yes, these things are important, but do they affect your starting salary and the kind of jobs you get? Absolutely not. So it may happen that you end up going to a business school which ranks high on these criteria and therefore has a high ranking, but which actually does not have good job outcomes. The second issue with rankings is that even though they give you a ranking in the starting salary of different business schools, they don't tell you exactly which companies or job roles the business schools place in. Two business schools can have very similar rankings, can have the similar location as well, but might have very different job outcomes in terms of industry. So take the example of consulting, take the example of ESCP and ESSEC. Say you want to get into consulting in France. Now ESCP places only 14% of its class in consulting, while ESSEC places 24% of its class in consulting. Now business school applications are expensive, so most students are going to apply to maybe 5-7 business schools. So if I were you and I want to get into consulting, I would definitely not choose ESCP. I would choose ESSEC. So you need to do your own research. You need to go to the placement reports and find out for yourself whether the business school that you are applying to can actually get you into the companies that you want. The third mistake that students make is starting too late. Most business schools, for most of these programs, take applications in rounds. Now, some business schools will have up to 6, 7, even 8 rounds. But for the most part, business schools have either 3 or 4 rounds. And the biggest issue that students make is they wait to apply in the 3rd or the 4th round. You should know that 60 to 70% of the class and even the scholarship is given out in the first 2 rounds itself. In fact, there are many business schools, and I've seen examples of this mostly in Europe, where they actively advertise higher scholarship amounts or discounts on the tuition fee if you apply in round 1 or round 2. So therefore, your target should be to apply to at least 3 or 4 business schools in round 1 and maybe then 3 or 4 business schools in round 2. Now, round 1 deadlines are typically 1 year before your program start date. So if you plan to apply for, let's say, the September 2027 intake, well then those deadlines are actually going to be in September 2026. Similarly, if you were planning to apply for the Jan 2027 intake, then those deadlines were actually in Jan 2026. We're already done with the round 1 deadlines of some business schools. And even before you apply to business schools, there is some time taken to take tests and write essays. So typically, if you're preparing for the GRE or the GMAT, that's going to take you something like 3 or 4 months. And then writing essays is going to take you another 2 months. Why 2 months? Because you're going to again apply to around 5 business schools, and each business school is going to have 3 to 4 different essays, which means that in total you'll be writing 15 to 20 different essays. So all in all, you need to actually start your journey 6 months before the application deadlines for round 1, which itself is 12 months before the term start, which means that you need to start planning your MBA journey 1.5 years before your planned start date. Alright, so that's a wrap for this video. As always, if you have any questions or comments about the study abroad process, do leave them below. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.